and the old souls. Let me turn off my phone deal. So, John, you have a topic that you want to talk about?
Well, I have more than a few, but one of them is, as some of you know, Mark's been battling health issues, and they're pretty serious, and he tackles them like a champ. But some health issues are scarier than others, and Mark has diabetes, and he needs a kidney transplant, and he just recently this is kind of why we haven't been on the air. He kind of had to take a step back to take a step up, and I've known Mark for more than a few years, and he's pretty stoic about many things, and you know, I think it was a tough journey to go back and do what needed to be done, but it appears like he's kind of back on the right track, and so, you know, kudos to him, and you know, I really appreciate. I just really appreciate how he tackles a bad situation with as much positivity as it can be done. So,
well, John, I appreciate the kind words, and before, when we were in the green room before we started the show, John was talking about, you know, what it was like to be dealing with life-threatening illnesses and different things like that. And what I said to him was that, you know, I'm pretty solid in my feelings about all that kind of thing. And John and I have been lifetime poker players. And I told him, I said, you know, I believe this life is just a poker tournament. And we're down here and we're playing poker with all of our spirit friends that we have connections with that are now realized in this realm. And, you know, sometimes you get knocked out early and sometimes you win the whole thing. So I'm okay if I get knocked out of this tournament at the final table, because I'm already at the final table. I've already won everything I could win except for, you know, the whole thing. But I believe that every time somebody gets knocked out of this tournament down here on Earth, we're going to go see all of our friends up there and get ready to play the next tournament after that. And for me, I just need to stay here and do as much good as I can in this tournament that I'm in right now. But I'm not afraid to go to the next tournament and play cash up there for a little while till we get released back down here. And I love y'all. And there isn't a damn thing you can do about that.
No, and I think one of the things, I'm not quite, you know, my philosophy, I am comfortable with dying. I tell people without being fatalistic, you know what? I'm on my bonus years.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and I've said it before, if I was a cat, I'd be my third cat. And so I am very thankful.
So 27 lives?
I could probably, I might be exaggerating that a little, but off the top of my head, I could probably give 12, 13, 14 examples of things that after they were done, I went, well, that was close. And so I'm happy to be here, and I would like to continue on. I'd like to continue on with decent health. And, you know, this reminds me, a long time ago girlfriend of mine, and I don't think I've ever said this on the show, Shelly Altman. And Shelly was my girlfriend back when I was in the 20s, and, you know, great gal, slightly younger than I was, didn't work out for whatever the reasons, but she was just a great person. And for the time we had together, it was great. And flash forward 25 years or 30 years. And I'd gone into my liquor store across from the club. And at this time, I was doing one of the worst decisions I ever made. It was my year or two of being a mortgage broker. That was a disaster. And but I had a
why was that a disaster? Why was that bad?
I got in exactly at the wrong time. I got in exactly at the time.
Was it 2008 or whatever during the crash?
It was exactly the wrong time. And I was working for someone, and I am attempting to do a good job. And I can tell you that my experience as a mortgage broker at that time, honesty worked against you. And I would literally be trying to help people. And I would be saying, Mark, I know you want 250,000, but I've gone through this. And really the most you can afford is like 2,000, 2,000, right in that ball. Well, I told you I wanted 250. Yeah, I know. But I'm just telling you that you can't really afford that. And this is what you need to do. Okay, I'll call you back. Then I'd call them. And they would say, oh, no, hey, I got that 250. Well, the only reason they got it is they were lying and their mortgage broker was lying. And then when I was working with someone, I
wonder how many of those people lost those homes.
Well, this is when, it was just right after this, that maybe 2 or 3 years later, when all you heard is foreclosures, bankruptcies, and I didn't have a lot of empathy for some of the people, because they got themselves into it. And the other side of the coin was, I was working with some people that were friends, but they were not necessarily the most ethical people. And I'd be working with someone and they'd be going, John, get them into this. You'll make more money. And I'd be going, yeah, but that's not the right thing for them. And so I just got it. But
John, I have to tell you that I made more money being honest with people and talking them out of a high dollar sale when I was in the computer business. People would come in and say, oh, I want a brand new computer and blah, 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 blah. And it's $1,500. And I would say, look, I want to sell you this $600 computer. And the chances of you being able to experience the difference between the $600 and the $1,500 one, I said, I will give you 30 days. Use this $600 one. And if you absolutely want to spend twice the amount of money, bring it in. I'll give you a full refund and we'll get you a new one. But you're utilizing 6 seats, and all the seats that are available on the on this $600 computer are like an $80,000 seat stadium. And more people came back to me year after year because I didn't try to get the most money out of them. And it was a win-win situation because I got a $600 sale. And then I got to do business with their neighbor and their mother and their grandfather. And, that does pay off. And I'm a good guys finish first type of guy.
Well, and you're absolutely correct. And that goes across the board. When I did racquetball lessons, I'd be working with someone and they would want to lock into like 10 lessons. And I would say, hey, you know what? Let's do this. Let's get through this first one. And then you go back out and practice and play a little bit. And then if you want to come back and we'll journey on, then we can lock in some lessons. But some people, I just knew that locking them into 10 lessons, the only person who's really going to benefit from that was me. And, you know, I feel the same. And as a mortgage broker, if I'd had true experience, I probably could have worked around some of that stuff, but I was learning. And the whole industry was changing. And it was right after that that all of a sudden now, when you're a mortgage broker, I mean, I can't even imagine. Mortgage broker or a lender, there are so many disclosures now. But in the wild days, you didn't disclose crap, you know. But the moral of this story is this. I had set out a card at my liquor store, had my picture on it. And I went across the street from the club to pick up something to take home. And I knew the lady behind the counter, and she's like all excited, like an Ethiopian lady. She's like all excited. And I'm like, what is up with you? And she goes, well, this gal came in. She was getting a bottle of wine. And she looked down and she saw your card. And she goes, that's my old boyfriend. And she started jumping around the liquor store. I said, you got to be kidding me. She goes, nope. I said, what'd she look like? She said, well, she's kind of tall. And she had cornrows. I said, I know who that is. Well, turns out it was one of my ex-girlfriends, Shelley. We got together, and I'll skip a bunch of parts, but she called me one day and she said, you know, she had a boyfriend at this time, great guy. She said, I didn't want to tell you this over the phone, but I need to tell you something. I said, what's that? And she goes, I've got leukemia. Oh, this is when I was traveling and on the road a lot with Belfour and the national team and stuff. And so I was getting ready to go back out. I could be out for a month. I could be gone for 3 months, 6 months. Who knew?
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah.
You were in all of the hot spots.
Yes, I was. And so Shelby and I had lunch. Now, this might be the last time I see her. And we're having lunch, and she said something that I never forgot. And she said, you know, John, it's not the dying I'm afraid of. It's the living that I'm going to miss. It just brought tears to my eyes. And I think that's kind of how I feel about it. I'm sure if I have to linger before I die, I'm sure I'll have some other thoughts, but I'm good with dying. I think I've led a halfway decent life. I attempt to do the right things, and if it's not enough, well, guess that's bad on me.
Well, John, I can vouch for you as your good friend of a long time, that every time I have called you and said, John, I need to help someone, will you use your resources and your talents to help me help them? You have never told me no. And, you know, we have really done a lot of neat things for people throughout the years. And I believe that, and this show included, you know, we're just trying to help people right now. If anybody reaches out to us and they need our help, you know, this is the platform that you and I have to be available for those people. And I would say that you have all my respect. And if my opinion counts at all, you're going to get a good chair in the next session.
Yeah. And you know what? And again, I'm comfortable with it because I know there are more people on my bandwagon than not. And I'm not here in life to get people on my bandwagon. Um, there are certainly some people out there that, for whatever reason, are not big fans. And you know what? That's fine. Sometimes I'm not my own biggest fan. And, but I rarely, if ever, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not a vengeful person, and I rarely, if ever, go after someone unless they are truly a bad, bad, bad person that is doing harm to others. And in that case, it's very difficult for me to reward bad behavior. But yeah, I just try to lead a decent life, and just kind of like you, and you know, like, yeah, that's
Well, I
kinda how
posted
that works.
to Facebook the other day a clip that Toby Keith said when he was in an interview about haters, and Toby said, haters make you money.
Oh yeah,
Get going, haters. You got to have some haters. And
yeah.
that guy was so much bigger than life. I'm sure he had haters
Oh,
just because,
absolutely.
you can't be out front there for so long and not have people squawking. And he took it with such grace. And, they didn't ever occupy any space in his mind. And that's how I hope to be, when I think about the people that I am crossways with. I shove their canoe out into the lake, and I try to get them out of my mind as much as I can. And that seems to help me.
Well, and you're a strong person. I'm a strong person. And it's, I think, easier for us to do that. And
I totally agree.
And that's kind of what sorts the men from the boys, for lack of a better term, how people deal with financial success and being famous, being an actor, being a sports figure. You have to just kind of understand that if you really are a good person, you're really trying to do the right things, you're not perfect. It doesn't matter what you do. There are going to be people that aren't on your bandwagon. And as long as you are not personally going after those people, you just kind of have to say, man, sorry.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I think are our responsibility when you and I are saying, hey, look, you're stronger enough to say, hey, look, you don't like me. I'm ugly, whatever. There's people out there that listen to these haters, and, they're not as strong of individuals, and, they're young kids, and they take the ultimate out because somebody's teasing them or whatever. And if there's any way that we could transfer our strength to the people that really don't have that strength to defend themselves, that's what I'd like to do. If anybody hears my voice on this podcast and they feel like, they're not good enough, or somebody's saying something about them, or that there's an evil person that's bullying them or whatever, because that's what it comes down to. It's just bullying. They don't like the situation. So they want you to feel bad about your success, or they want you to feel bad about your dreams or whatever. And you and I are ducks, it just washes off our backs, and, we're going about our business. But, the ones that aren't, I want to help them be ducks. I want to give them a raincoat. I want to have them say, hey, forget about those people. Because once you start doing that, then the good people come rushing in,
But, Mark, it is, and this gets a lot deeper. Not everyone has the backup in their home life.
I agree. I totally agree with that.
They might be the way, they might be broken simply because of their support system or their lack of support. And again, I'm lucky, you're lucky, because perhaps not always through our lives were we as strong as we are now. We were strong enough to get through whatever we got through, and we were able to put it in perspective. When you're young, there are individuals that they're just strong early. They just are. But some people aren't. And getting through that time and place is difficult. And I hate to see it when kids commit suicide over things that they never should have been put in that position. You know, school bullying or whatever. I mean, I think I told you one of my defenses was, I mean, kind of one of the reasons I am who I am is early in life, I just made a decision that I kind of had to protect myself. And then in more than a few cases, that meant I physically had to get in fights with people. And that's what I did. You know, and whether it was right or wrong, that's what I did. And I wasn't going to let people shove me around or make fun of me or do that stuff. And once I kind of got a few people in line, I didn't have near as many problems. So I don't suggest that as a lifestyle, by the way. So, but you know what I'm saying.
I do.
Yeah.
I absolutely do.
Yeah. So anyway, so let's switch gears just for a second. So in regards to poker, I am kind of tackling poker in a different manner at the moment. And one of the things going to play tonight. So one of the things I would like to hear from you is, as an experienced poker player, what was kind of your philosophy when you sat down to play?
Mr. Faust, you have hit upon the loaded interview question for me. I probably 30 years ago, something like that, ended up liking to go to the casino. And then I lost all my money, you know, real quick, playing blackjack and all that other kind of stuff. And what I found was that if I would go into the poker room, I could buy a rack of white chips for $100 and play in the 2-4 limit hold'em at the Bellagio, and I could play almost all night on $200 or $300, even if as a bad player. And so I was drinking at the time, and I May 2nd, I'll have my 25th anniversary of not drinking. And thank God, because I wouldn't be around. With my personality, you know me well enough. I mean, if I was drinking on top of it, I would have a big problem. But I used to get free drinks at the poker table, and at the blackjack table. But I started playing poker because, you know, my money lasted a lot longer. I could be in there playing with chips and socializing, and I just liked that whole feeling. So I accidentally got into poker, wanting to not lose as much money, you know. And then I started learning a little bit, and I started thinking, hey, I really want to try and make some money playing poker. And one of the things that I will tell all of the listeners, especially the poker playing listeners that we have, you have to be very careful when you're trying to play poker in a raked game, either in a casino or a club or whatever, when they're taking money out of the game, the chances of you getting to actually make any money in a red chip poker game, and what that means is a $5 chip poker game, are almost zero, because they're taking money out for jackpots, they're taking money out for the house rake, and if you put $200 stacks in 10 seats around the table and you had no players, and you just had things, automatically kind of go as they're supposed to, those chips would all be gone before the end of the night without any of the players winning one hand or making any money at all. That whole amount would be gone. So it's really hard to make money playing low limit poker. It's not a lottery. It's not a slot machine, but it is not. Put it this way: if you went to 7-Eleven, especially right now, and they're paying you $20 an hour, it's very difficult for you to make more money playing poker than working at 7-Eleven. And the 7-Eleven money is for sure.
Well, that's why they call it gambling.
The poker money is up and down and all around. So one of the things that I teach in my poker and business class is you need to have a regular straight job or straight company. And I'll make an example out of this. One of the kids that I coach has a concrete company. And I tell him, look, be a gentleman at the table. Realize take your losses like a man, and be friendly. Be the person that they like to lose their money to, or they like having you at the game, because the money is not in the poker game. Because one of these guys at this poker game is going to call you and say, hey, I have a commercial property. Would you like to bid on this $30,000 concrete job? And I said, you're going to make $10,000 on that concrete job, and that's going to be poker winnings. It doesn't feel like poker winnings, but you're going to make $10,000 from that one poker game where you lost $300 because you made a friend and you did some business together. And that's where all of the money comes from in poker. It's not from what you win on the table. It's from the relationships you have.
You just said, I was waiting for my opportunities, because I was going to say, taking almost all of this full circle, it is always about the relationships.
150%.
Always. I mean, I lost a lot of money through the years, taking the path of being in the athletic business and being a racquetball pro and stringing rackets and giving lessons. And I had other opportunities that would have made me so much more money. But I will never, the relationships I gained out of all of that is beyond imagination. And I still reap them. I mean, racquetball is the reason I know you.
And John, I consider you to be one of my very, very, very dear friends. And we've made that relationship over time just because we're hanging around playing cards together, or we're doing racquetball things, or whatever we're doing together. It's a reason for us to get together and further that friendship and cement that friendship. Now we're doing this podcast together, and we're not making any money doing this, but it is worthwhile.
Nothing joking. Yeah, no, it is. And that's funny. And it is about relationships. And you make me think, I don't have a lot of the people I play poker with. I'm shocked at how detailed they can remember some of their poker stories.
Right.
I'm not that detailed. I can think of situations. And one of my funniest ones, it's funny to me, it's not funny to this other person, is going up to Blackhawk to play. And, we're waiting for the tournament to start. And I got this gal sitting next to me, and we're just kind of shooting the breeze. And she goes, "Oh yeah, I won the Heartland Tour up here." Oh, and I guess I'll do this story and we'll call it a day. I won the Heartland Tour up here. Oh, cool. How much did you win? She goes, 240,000. Because that's great. She goes, yeah, I went to Vegas. I was kind of sponsored and I lived there, tried to make a living for a couple of years, decided I'd just come back and it's better to be with my family. So I play these tournaments. I'm like, well, that's really good. So she's obviously a good player. So we play and we're battling along and she's winning, I'm winning, and she's definitely a smarter player than I am. And
now, was that back in the Gilpin days or was it Ameristar? What was it?
This would where I always play. No, I rarely go to
Golden
Ameristar.
Gate.
Yeah, I'm kind of a Golden Gate guy out of habit.
Yeah, that's a nice room.
Yeah, and so we get in this hand, and I couldn't tell you the hand. I just know that I had something. I needed a little luck. And I either went all in and she called, or she went all in and I called. Whatever. Well, I got my card. She went off the deep end. And she kind of stood, and she had been very demeaning to everyone at the table, which I don't like.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
Yeah. And she's like, "You are the worst poker player." I'm paraphrasing. "You're the worst poker player I've ever played in my life. And, I cannot believe, and I can see the people at the table kind of going, oh. And I said, hold it. I said, "Can I ask a question?" I said, "So when you got your card on the river, you're like the best player ever. But when I get my card on the river, I'm like the worst player ever." And I can just see steam. If it was a cartoon, you would just see steam coming out. And then I looked up and I said, what's important here? Everybody at the table just went. I said, what's important here? I have your chips and you don't. Well, a month later, I go up to play. Who's sitting right across from me? Well,
the nemesis.
And I'm thinking, she won't remember me. The minute she looked up and saw me, she remembered me. And it was funny because I knew right that moment she was going to be playing to get me.
And now you have the advantage.
And I did. So now I have beat her 3 times now. It's been 2 or 3 years now since I've seen her. But it was it's funny. But
my favorite thing, whenever I get one of the pros at my table, and I have them there a lot of times when I'm playing in Vegas, either in a satellite or a tournament or a cash game, and there's citizens in the game, and then there's poker pros in the game, and the citizens are fluttering around. "Oh, you're a poker professional. I saw you on TV." And so I turn to the person so that the pro can hear me. But I turn to the person and I say, "Well, do you know what it takes to qualify as a professional poker player?" "Oh, no. What do you have to do to qualify for being a poker professional?" And I say, "Well, first of all, you have to be a person that doesn't have a job and hangs around in a casino all the time. Those are the requirements. And the pro always gets upset, and you know, it's always a big laugh, but you know, don't feel like you're such a big deal because you were willing to risk $10,000 and lose it on the flip of a card or a suck out. I mean, you can't, you know.
Don't you think, Mark? Don't you think, though? Because something you said a little earlier that holds true is I think once you get, I think what you just said is definitely true. You got to get a little lucky. But I think once a lot of those guys get going, the established professionals all have investments in legitimate businesses.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And again, since we're exposing some poker things, and maybe we'll do a whole show on this again.
I would like to do a whole show on it.
Yeah, we should do a whole show on poker. But it's a bit of the Wizard of Oz type thing because nobody really understands what's going on. A lot of times, what they're watching, they're on TV, and you see Eric Mizrachi win the $50,000 buy-in, and he wins, you know, $10 million or whatever. What people don't realize is when it gets to be that level, typically, those players don't have a lot of their equity.
Right.
You know, they have backers that put them in the tournament. So when they win the 10 million, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll take 10% of the 10 million, but they're not winning 10 million. They're winning 10% of 10 million. And they probably have to pay back some make good from other tournaments that they lost. And so it's more of a business and less of a, oh, he won that and he's set for life. No, he's grinding away. And a lot of the poker players have bad habits, and they take a $500,000 rack of chips and put it into a craps table, you know, after they win one of those and they lose their money. But then you've got Eli Alezra, who has been around forever, and he plays in the big cash games on TV, poker at night or whatever, and he's playing very high. But he has a lot of convenience stores. I think he's got like 30 gas stations and convenience stores in the Vegas area. And so he's got his wealth going on his day job. And then he's playing poker on the fringes, even though it's high. He's playing poker on the fringes. And you know, it's a matter
of having a foundation is huge.
Yes, it's absolutely. And it doesn't have to be at the nosebleed levels.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
I know a lot of guys that are retired and they're on Social Security on their fixed income, and they're getting some money off of their other investments that they had. And they play in the lower level tournaments, and they have a poker lifestyle, and, you know, they've got 150 buy-ins to the local 150 tournament that they play. They keep their bankroll separate, you know, and they've got other living expenses. And then if you do that and then you're successful, then you can bleed a little bit of your poker winnings back into
Mark,
your regular
you
winnings.
Describing me to a T, because I tell people all the time that, you know, you can't play from a position of weakness.
Yep, absolutely.
And, you know, you're one of the reasons that I say that, and I've told that, and then we'll cut this in a minute. But I laugh and I tell people back when we played at the legendary Mansion games, and without going into great detail, it was quite the operation, and there were great players there, and we would have 65 players in an area that was better than anything up on the hill. And
those were good times.
Yeah. And we would be playing, and there would be people, and Mark would be one of them, that it was like, yeah, I'm a little bored with this tournament. What are we doing the cash game? and he would just do crazy ass shit. Sorry. And he would, and of course he'd win, but then whatever, he'd get knocked out. He'd go play the cash game. Well, I learned very early that, and I'm a good cash game player. I have to play a cash game at my level.
Yes, sir.
And
that is true in life.
It is. And I remember going in one night and, taking my $200 or $300 and I'm gonna play this cash game. Now I'd look across from me and there'd be Mark. There'd be this huge roll of money. And I knew that if I got into a hand with him, if I didn't have 4 of a kind, a dead straight full house, a straight flush, I knew that if I said I'm all in, Mark's going to say, okay, I'm all in. And I knew that this was meaning a lot more to me than it was to Mark. And so I just kind of dropped out of that little cash game. We'll call this, I want to do a poker one. Let's call this a day. I will tell you this. I'm in the midst right now. The other day on Facebook, are you aware of the master classes?
Yes.
I am taking the Daniel Negreanu master class.
Oh, good.
Cost me a whole $15.
I love it.
And so I am taking it now because no matter what you think you know about something, you never know enough.
Well, you see all those books behind me right there?
Yep.
Every one of those is a poker book. And I used to say all poker books are free because if I learn one thing in a poker book,
absolutely,
and then it helped me win a $15 pot, it's free.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
If you get one thing out of Danny's class and you win a $15 pot tonight when you go play at Mike's, then you got a free master class. And that's how I look at it.
You know what? He does a great job. I was afraid that I would get into it and it would just, I'd be going, oh. But he is really relatable.
Well, I want you to ask me the next show we do next Friday or whenever we kick off a regular show again. I want you to ask me about the hand between Jason Ryder and Daniel Negreanu in the World Series in 2004. And I'll tell you the hand exactly how it went down. And it's an exciting personal story. And I'll tell you another story about Danny when he played the multi-rebuy in 2005. No, 2005. And that's a really cool story with John Wanda and Mike Matisow. But ask me about that one, and we'll have a good time having some poker episodes.
Okay, well, let's call it a day. It's great to be back on track. It's really great to see your face. I'm proud of you for battling another episode that we need to probably cover is advocating for yourself when you have medical situations.
Yes, sir.
Because I'm not going to go into it now, but I've been in a battle over something. And had I not taken, I actually literally called the doctor's office and just said, you know what? I'm taking this over.
Yeah.
Well, as a matter of fact, when I get off of this, I got to make a call about that just to make sure that we are, in fact, on the right track.
John, I have to tell you, and in wrapping up, I have to tell you that I have so much respect for you because you also have adversity in your life and you have been so stoic about it. And I set my example based on you, brother.
Yeah.
You are my brother and you inspire me. And there's a lot of times when I say, if John Faust can do what he's doing, I can stand up and have a good life with what I've got going on. And hopefully hopefully the Old Souls podcast helps one other person feel like, hey, I can do things too. If those two can do things, I can do things.
They absolutely can.
Just
Okay,
remember,
Mark.
there's an Old Souls Boomer web page that we started on Facebook, and it's for a lot of fun, and we're posting mimes in there. It's called Boomers 1964 to whatever Old Souls group, and get in there, join up, and have some fun. And John, I love you, and there
Love you,
isn't a
buddy.
damn thing you can do about it.
I appreciate it, Mark. You take care. I'll be in touch, and we'll get in another episode next week. Okay.
And you're going to come down to Oklahoma and play some poker with me.
You know what? That's probably sooner than later. So we'll work that out. Okay, man.
Well, you always have a place to stay when you want to come to Oklahoma.
You know what? I may need that. So
well, we'll give it to you for sure.
Okay.
John Faust, everybody.